My brother-in-law, Mark, and I have a very, very interesting, very positive friendship. Though we're very different. We are really, really different people. And probably one of the main reasons for our difference is because we come from very different families. My wife and her family have a Serbian-Bosnian background, so a former Yugoslav background. And here you can see our whole family up on the Sunshine Coast. So I did a quick trip up, flew up in the day for my mother-in-law's birthday, had to come back on the same night. I couldn't spend too long there. But there you can see my brother-in-law right at the end on the left there with the really cool sunglasses, and he's amazing guy. But our families are very, very different compared to my family. Think my big fat Greek wedding sort of thing. That's kind of the picture, because my wife's family, they are so amazing. Life just is full when you go to their house. So the kitchen is like the hub of my wife's family. It's like where everything happens. You go down there, if you want a piece of pizza, you just go into the fridge, you eat your pizza, and of course there's somebody else is going to be there, and they're going to be talking. It's so amazing. Talk at the dinner time goes at 500 k's an hour. It's just so fast. And sometimes I try and step in. It's like and okay, sorry, I can't step into this highway. Sorry. And I can sit there. It's so amazing. And they're talking about, mostly it's about family. Family stretches from Melbourne all the way up to Brisbane, and of course to Yugoslavia as well. And it's what's happening, who's pregnant, who's had a baby, who's getting engaged, who's getting married, and the crazy things in life. It's so amazing kind of life to be part of. And that's Mark at the end there. So that's the family that he comes from, where my wife comes from as well. This is my family. My family has a English and Swedish background. So there's a properness that comes. And my family, my brother-in-law's a pediatrician, my sister's a pediatrician, my dad's a surgeon, my mum's a GP. And I'm the black sheep in the family. I didn't do medicine, so forgive me. But when we have dinner has to start at 6:30. And Queen Elizabeth, my mother, reigns during that time. You speak to if you're spoken to. So, and don't touch that teapot. Did I let you touch that? No, I didn't. So, and most of the time it happens to be my mother speaking. So it's for about half an hour we get this rendition. It's a Elizabethan monologue mostly. My father's a very quiet person, and so we sit there and listen and we talk as well. And what we talk about is politics, theology, philosophy, science. That's what we kind of talk about. And about 20 minutes into the conversation, my father gets up and starts to do the dishes. And that's a signal that there's 10 more minutes of Elizabethan monologue, and then we can go to our bedrooms and do our homework. We can do what we need to do. That's my family. That's the family I grew up in. Totally different. So you can understand why Mark and I are very different people. The other thing as well is this. This is the kind of car that my brother-in-law drives. He drives a Subaru WRX. It's got turbo. It's got a spoiler. It's got turbocharged as well. It's got leather seats. My kids go to his car and go, "Daddy, can we have this car?" It's absolutely amazing. The car that I drive, or our family, is a Toyota Corolla wagon. Now, I know that the guys here are just drooling over this one instead of the WRX. No, sorry, I realize that. But, it's a good car. It's 1.8 litres. It can get up a hill. And it's good. It's really good for the child seats in the back. And the boot is amazing. But I know that even the young ladies here aren't going, "Wow, I want that car." No, we're really, really different people. And here's my brother-in-law pulling a funny face with my kids. And it's amazing. But the interesting thing is this, that even though Mark and I are very different, for some reason we just click. For some reason, we click. And when we sit down together and we talk, we talk about amazing things together. One time, he had to go to a concert in town near Redfern. And if he went by train from Quakers Hill, it would have taken him about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. I don't know. It was quite a long time. So I said to him, Mark, how about if I drive you into town in the Toyota Corolla? And so he was very gracious and said, yes, why not? So we're driving along there, and then he says to me, you know, the National Geographic that you that was on the bedside table last night, and we have it here, was really interesting. We just kind of left it there, and he said, you know, it's Rome's bad boy. Sounds like a cool story, doesn't it? It's about Nero. And of course, most of us know Nero was a terrible guy. That's what we think. But he said, you know, this article was saying that Nero wasn't as bad as some people make him out to be. You know, he actually did some great things for Rome. And so I said to him, yes, you know, it's actually really interesting. And I said, the reason, of course, is that after Nero and Rome kind of reached its height and power and then started to collapse, what happened, of course, was the Christian church took over the empire in many ways. And, well, it did. And so what happens, of course, is that the people writing history were the Christian historians. And, of course, because Nero persecuted the Christians, he put them on poles, he brushed them with tar and then set them alight. It's a great thing to do. And I said, you know, they were writing, and of course they're going to take a negative view towards Nero. They're not going to like him because they persecuted the Christians so much. And I said, you know, if you go back, the reality is probably a little bit more balanced. It's a little bit, there's two sides to every story. And I said, you know, that's a very interesting observation that you've made. And then he turned to me and then he asked me that question. He made that comment. And he said to me, you know, Sven, there's times where I just don't know if Christianity is really relevant. I don't know if Christianity is really relevant. And it's kind of stopped me right there. And of course, what he's referring to is this. He's referring to the fact that, you know, you go to the Bible and it says, don't eat pork, don't eat shellfish. You know, don't mix your linen and wool when you make clothes. And he's going like, well, how on earth is that relevant to today's society? You know, if I go to Domino's Pizzas or whatever, you know, have a bit of ham on my pizza, who cares? What does it matter? You know, it's just, and you know, with Christianity, you have to go to church for an hour a week. You can't drink alcohol. You know, how does it connect to reality? Me as a young man, how does it really connect? And I think he had a good question. It really stopped and made me think. Of course, what's even deeper than that is this: is not only Christianity relevant, but is God relevant? Is God relevant to our lives today? You know, I need to each week look at my bank account and check, do I have enough money in the bank to pay for my mortgage? And not get hit with a big fine or fee or whatever. And, you know, I have to drive in the traffic. And, you know, I could pray, oh, Lord, I just make sure that mortgage payment comes through. But, you know, things just roll on and it's kind of like, does God even come into the picture at all? Does he even have anything to do with my life? You know, is God relevant? But there's an interesting question as well. Is not only is God relevant, but is God relevant to what in my life? Do you understand what I'm saying? Is God relevant to something in my life? And I want to share with you a very personal story. And that is this. This is my family that I introduced to you before. When I was 14 years old, I came to a very, very significant understanding and insight into my life. And that was, with a 14-year-old teenage, keep that in mind, teenage mind, I realized, or I came to the understanding that my dad was irrelevant to my family. That's that's what I thought. I thought to myself, you know, my dad is always at work. He's always got these surgical lists, operating lists. He's always doing ward rounds. He always gets called out. He's almost never here. Whereas my mum is always there. She's always cooking. She's giving food for us. She's always talking, giving me advice, even if I don't want it. She's there. But my dad just isn't there, you know. And I thought to myself, our family could continue even if my dad wasn't here. That's what, in my 14-year-old mind, I came to realize. I thought, this is really good. I've got good deductive skills here, really good. It's interesting that just a few weeks later, I came to actually work out if my theory was true, if my deductive skills were good. What happened was that my family and I were living in Hong Kong, and my family thought it would be good for us to go to China to understand the history and the culture. So we planned this trip with a nurse from the hospital called Amy. And so she was going to be our tour guide. We were not going to go in a big bus with all the American tourists and the Japanese and waving the flags. No, we were going to China to do a personal trip to meet family of Amy and other people like that. Just a few days before we left, my dad got a call. And it was his family, his parents in Mullumbimby. And the call was, your mum is dying. Your mum is dying. And what I knew was that my dad was actually really close to my mum. He was actually quite similar. They were quite similar in personality. And so, because he was close, you could tell that he was emotionally distraught about it. And we got to the decision where he said, I will go back to Mullumbimby to spend time with my mum because I don't know how long she's going to live. And the rest of the family, you go to China. So there was Amy, my mum and my sister and I. We went to China. My dad went to Australia. The amazing thing was this, that suddenly I realized where did my mum get her confidence and stability from? It was from my dad. It was from my dad. Because we went on this trip. The trip didn't fall over. But my mum was suddenly so much more insecure. Her confidence was coming from my dad. And on that trip, I had to be the man of the house. I had to be the person that sorted all of these things out. My mother was leaning on me, and suddenly I realized, hang on a minute, Dad is really relevant. And the times where I go like, Dad, what your advice to me just doesn't make any sense. Now when I look back, I go like, hang on a minute. His advice really did make sense. And the amazing thing is this, I've realized that I'm more like my dad than I think. I'm more like my dad than I think. And that what he tells me actually makes a lot of sense. And the other thing, of course, is that if my dad wasn't part of my family, I wouldn't exist. I wouldn't even exist. My mother might have had another marriage to another man, but it would have been another teenage boy. I wouldn't even be here if my dad wasn't part of our family. What I'd like to do this morning is to go through with you and share with you some of the things why God is really relevant to our lives. And the first thing that God is relevant for our lives is the meaning of life, the deep meaning of life. There was this person, the king of Israel. His name was Solomon, one of the most wisest people that ever lived. And this guy was absolutely amazing. He had everything he wanted to have. He had literally boatloads of things coming to his kingdom every year. Boatloads of gold, silver, bronze, apes and peacocks. And I ask you, I would love to have boatloads of gold coming to my place. I think Lloyd would as well. I don't know about the apes. I could leave the apes out. But the peacocks, yes, that'd be kind of cool as well. But, he had everything. He had 700 wives. He had 300 concubines. And basically what that meant was that he could see a beautiful woman in the land. He could have he could have a one-night stand. She would go into the harem and she would spend the rest of her days there. She would never see him again. He could have any woman he wanted to in the country. It was, and of course, once she went to the harem, she could have no other husband because that would be treason. He had music. He had these incredible building projects. He had anything that his heart desired. And you know what he came to at the end of his life? He said this, meaningless. Everything is utterly meaningless. Because he said, once I die, all of these things I've done, all of this money I've made, who knows where it will go? It might be squandered by my children. I just don't know. And scientists tell us, if you go from an atheistic scientific point of view, that we're just a bunch of atoms. We're just a bunch of atoms that I will die, that you will die. Every one of us will die. The whole universe is going to this oblivion. And what that means is this. Even if you're a cancer surgeon and you do the very best for your patients, you help hundreds of patients not to have cancer. You know what the thing is? It's all meaningless because they will die and so will you. So will you. The only thing that gives meaning to our lives, ultimately, and this is what Solomon came to realize, is that God exists, that he loves us, that he cares for us, that he has a purpose for you and I. That's where meaning comes from. Otherwise, it has no meaning at all. Now, you might say, this is a grumpy old man. Why would we listen to him? You know, he just had too many women in his life. He should have, stuck with a good one. Just like I have, and Lloyd's got a good woman as well. But, let's go to a contemporary with it person, Paris Hilton. Paris Hilton. She's the heiress of every single Hilton hotel in the world. Money rolls in. When her boyfriend buys her a $1 million engagement ring, she can say, don't really like that. It's a bit cheap. I would want one more expensive. And buys a $2 million engagement ring. And she goes, I don't like yellow gold. I'd like rose gold or whatever it is, Her advice is, if you don't get what you want, pout, whimper. And, change your attitude. Change your clothes whenever you want to. And change your boyfriend as well. It's an amazing thing. December 2014, that's only 3 months ago, she went online and she said that inside she feels empty. Empty. Utterly empty. You could have the world, but lose your soul, lose your meaning. And it only comes, as Solomon found out, from having God in our lives. And this is not only celebrities, not only grumpy old kings, but even scientists and philosophers. This is a guy in the States. He's actually dying of cancer. William Provine, a professor. He said, the universe cares nothing for us, and we have no ultimate meaning in life if you take the atheistic worldview. But if God exists, then he is relevant for giving our lives genuine and ultimate meaning. And this is what Jesus said, I have come in order that you might have life in all its fullness, But it's not only about meaning in life, there's also something as well, and that is morality. Morality. That this famous person, Richard Dawkins, says, in a universe of blind physical forces and genetic replication, some people are going to get hurt, other people are going to get lucky, and you won't find any rhyme or reason in it, or any justice as well. He says, the universe we observe has precisely the properties we should expect if there is at the bottom no design, no purpose, no evil, and no good. Nothing but blind, pitiless indifference. DNA neither knows nor cares. DNA just is, and we dance to its music. What he's saying to you is, if atheism is true, we are simply DNA machines. We are DNA machines. And you can have a human machine in a plane, and a pilot walks out of that cockpit, and that human machine puts it into nosedive straight down into the Alps. 150 people gone. And we shouldn't care one bit. Who cares? It was just one machine driving another machine that's hitting a big astronomical object. The problem is, deep down we do care. Deep down, we do care. There's something wrong about a person who may be having problems with their relationships or with their emotions, but taking 150 people down into the earth. That is wrong. That is wrong. And just as it is wrong for a person in a school like Knox Grammar to be going with a balaclava into a dormitory to rape a young boy, to sexually abuse, that is wrong. And the only place that we can find that is if there's a lawgiver, if there's a moral foundation for our lives. And even Richard Dawkins himself says it's pretty hard to defend absolute morals on anything other than religious grounds. Science has no methods for deciding what is ethical. The only reason that we can have morals where we can say evil is evil and good is good is if God is real and alive. He takes part in our lives. God is relevant with regards to morality. And here we have William Provine coming back, and he says, no inherent moral or ethical laws exist, nor are there any absolute guiding principles for human society if atheism is true. You know, God is relevant for giving our lives meaning and purpose, but also for giving us moral principles to live by. And you know, Paul says this, amazing. Whatever commandment there may be is summed up in this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. Love. That makes sense. That makes us feel good inside. That's where we want to be. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no harm to your neighbor. It does not fly people into an Alps, into a mountain. Therefore, love is a fulfillment of the law. You know, God says this: I can bring the quality into your life. I can bring love. I can bring joy. I can bring peace into your life, and it comes from God himself. The other amazing thing is this, you know, your intelligence as well. You know, you're sitting here, you're watching online, and I trust that you have the intelligence to understand what I'm saying, to follow the logic and reason. But you know, the interesting thing is this: a person called Charles Darwin wrote this. In 1881, he wrote this: but then within me, the horrid doubt always arises whether the convictions of man's mind, which has been developed from the mind of the lower animals, are of any value or at all trustworthy. Would anyone trust in the convictions of a monkey's mind if there are any convictions in such a mind? You know, when you go to Taronga Zoo here in Sydney, when you look at the monkey, do you think like, wow, he's thinking amazing things? I want to know what he's thinking about the universe. I want to think about it, what he's thinking about ethics. No, you don't, because you know you don't trust him. You don't trust him. And you could say, well, Darwin was a zoologist. What would he know? He's not a neuroscientist. He's not a philosopher. Well, let's take it further afield to New York. If we came to believe that our minds were the result of unguided evolution, that would mean should be very skeptical about our own intelligence. And if that's an atheist talking, what about a Christian guy? We have this guy, Alvin Plantinga. If both evolution and atheism are true, then the probability of us having reliable minds is very, very low. And yet, even though I may have never met you, I may have never spoken to you, you might be sitting thousands of miles away. You know, the fact is this: I still trust in your intelligence. Why do I do that? Why do I do that? It's because I truly believe that you have been made in the image of God. God is relevant for us to understand and trust in human intelligence. And Paul and Moses said this, you know, human beings have been made in the image of God. People have been made in the image of God. You know, the meaning of life, morality and the values of life, even human intelligence. But you know, God is not only just leaving it that. You know, if someone was to step into our world and to show himself to us, that is when God becomes incredibly relevant. You know, the Bible says that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. But, you know, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen His glory. You know, God has stepped into our life. He's walked up to us, shaken hands with us, and said, "Hi, my name is Jesus. I want to spend all of eternity with you." And this is what he said to us. You know, he said to us when he was talking to Nicodemus on a dark night in Jerusalem, when Nicodemus was trying to understand what is the meaning of life? What is the meaning of life? Where can I find true purpose? Where can I find where I can go to for all eternity? How can I understand? You know, Jesus sat down with him and told him these incredible words. He said, you know, no one can enter into the kingdom of God unless he's born again, is born of water and the Spirit. It's not by your own human willpower. It's not by your intelligence. It's not by even your good works that you can get into the kingdom of God, that you can be part of my reality, is because it's a gift of life. And then he said those incredible words, the most famous words in all of the Bible. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. Isn't that amazing? There is a God. There is a God who cares. That even when a person with the freedom of choice dives down straight towards the ground, there is a God who cares. There is a God who cares. That was not just a random, meaningless act. There is a God of justice and morality who, for a person in that plane who believes in Jesus, Jesus is able to raise them back to life. That we can see them. That I can see my grandmother. I can see my grandfather. And no matter what happens in life, we can know that God is relevant. He cares about us. He loves us. We can spend all of eternity with him.
What a fellowship, what a joy divine, leaning on the everlasting arms. What a blessedness, what a peace is mine, leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning, I say that safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning, I say that leaning on the everlasting arms.
Have you wandered away from Jesus? Or have you just never met him before, but you would love to have him wrap his arms around you and meet him for the first time? Today is the day. Come home, he's calling us, each one of us. And if you'd like to know more about how to do that, we're offering this free book today. It's called Steps to Christ, Steps to Know Jesus Better, Steps to Come Home. So just call the number on the bottom of your screen now and we'll get that out to you as soon as we can. And if you've enjoyed what you've seen today, if you've enjoyed the worship and the singing and the preaching, then we'd love to invite you to come and be with us this coming Saturday at 10 a.m. at the Rimba campus of UWS. There's great food, great worship. We have a children's part where they can learn about Jesus as well. We have time together where you can come and meet us, meet the pastor, and just become a part of our family. We'd love to see you there. Hope I can see you personally this Saturday, 10 a.m.
Leaning